Well, I'm a special advisor to the Secretary General. He's asked me to do three things: to develop the responsibility to protect conceptually, politically, and institutionally and operationally. So the whole idea was to turn a theory of trying to prevent atrocity crimes into the reality of practice every day.
What would you like to personally achieve by the end of your current tenure?
Well, the first step, people said, when will you know R2P is making a difference? And I would normally reply that when it is affecting the way countries vote on the Security Council, when there's a political price to be paid for blocking this kind of action, that would be a time when we know there's a difference. And I think what we're seeing this year is that member states are very reluctant to vote against resolutions with R2P. Sometimes, as in the case of Syria, they try to get the R2P language out and say it's a different kind of issue. But once it's in there, we remind them that they probably want to be on the right side of history as opposed to the wrong side of history. And so if at the end of the day we made a difference in making that case, if governments are more attuned to these issues, if publics are, then I think I'll be quite happy that we made a difference. And I think, quite frankly, we're quite far along. This is still a controversial area, but the principle itself really is accepted. I don't know any member state that says that they're against stopping atrocity crimes. There would be some who say we don't like military measures, or we don't like sanctions, or we don't like the big powers to do this. There are going to be political differences, but those are about the tactics. Those are about the way the principle is implemented. The principle itself is inviolate, and I think should remain that way. So I have a sense that we have really crossed the political Rubicon. We have a lot to fix in terms of knowing how to go about this, because these are not easy things to reverse in some cases. But very definitely we're going in the right direction, and I think the Secretary General has had so much enthusiasm for this issue. He's made it one of the 5 priorities for his second term beginning in January. I think everyone sees this, and as long as he's very consistent about it, then I think that tends to be a rising tide for the whole UN system.
You talk about R2P being very well picked up in academia and in the UN institutions and in parliaments, but do you think it's really captured the public's imagination yet?
Well, I think for some publics, they've heard vaguely of R2P. They're not quite sure what it is. And what they normally have read is some headline somewhere talking about the use of force in Libya, and so they associate it just with that. So I think the larger strategy of R2P is beyond most of the publics yet, because they haven't really been introduced to it. Some governments, quite frankly, are a little confused about what this is all about. So we have to keep working the educational side. That's an area where the certainly UNA UK can be enormously helpful. Is to explain to people what this is about, and importantly what it's not. You know, it's not humanitarian intervention. It's not the old idea of simply sending in the Marines in every situation. You know, we have a 3-pillar strategy of the responsibility of the state, and then helping the state under the 2nd pillar to meet those responsibilities. And if all else fails, then a series of measures, whether they're peaceful measures under Chapter 6, whether they're coercive measures under Chapter 7, or whether there are regional measures under Chapter 8 of the Charter. So there's lots of ways of going about it, but it all has to be focused on trying to stop these kinds of crimes once and for all. So yes, the educational challenge is a very, very big one.